Hey, it's Mary Beth. I am here for Mad Scientists and we're going to work on acrylic paint skins. I can't wait. So let's flip the camera and get going. We are going to start at the end. So this is a piece of a clear acrylic skin that I could peel up from this plastic. It has been sitting here drying down overnight, so it's easily peeled. I'm going to show you how to make it here in a minute, but first I want to show you what you can do with it. So I have a stencil. I'm going to lay this stencil down here up in the corner, and I'm going to tape this down because I just want this tree bit, okay? And I don't want to stencil over those edges at all. So I'm going to make sure that I don't do that by putting some tape down. And that will ensure that I don't go outside those lines. All right. I'm going to just use black gesso for this one because I like adding black and white to my art. And that's why I make a lot of the skins that I make. The gesso lid is not going to come off, so you're going to hear a loud noise. I had to loosen it up there. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to just use some paint off of the top here. And I'm going to use this sponge. This is made by Ranger. It has that dome top on it. I really like this sponge a lot. I'm going to pounce, I put some black gesso on there, then I'm going to pounce some off on the side because I don't want it to get too goopy. And then I'm just going to up and down over this design. The reason I'm using a sponge for this is because of the delicate lines in this stencil. You could possibly use a palette knife, a brush, or other implements, but this has such delicate lines in that tree that the sponge is the best way for us to go. I'm going to show a couple other options here in a minute, and then we'll go back and start it all over. All right, let's get the tape up and see what we've got. It'll take a minute for this to dry. Well, that was not the most perfect tape removal I've ever seen. But now let's pull it up. And I have a lovely little piece there. There's a little bit of putz right there. I've got a palette knife. I don't know if you can see it. It's right here. There, got it up. Okay, very good. Now, let's do a couple other things. Since I've got, here's how I do it when I make skins. I do a whole sheet, and then I make a bunch of different designs on it. This is a Seth Apter stencil, and I happen to love these little square bits to move around on my art, so I'm going to use some of these. And here's the thing. When you get to the point that you're using your skins, you can cut them all out. You know, you don't have to leave them in this configuration. They're easily cuttable. Is that a word? Cuttable? I don't know, it should be. So here's some of those. I'm going to put a few more of the bigger ones down here, just to use up that space. Then I'm going to turn this, and I want to use this part of the stencil, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see here. Let's do that one. Let's move this around so I don't get the wet part of the stencil on anything else. So I'm going to just do this 1 to 0 bit. I like this part. I used to use this stencil all the time. You know how you get new stencils and then you forget about some of the fantastic old ones. So I wanted to go back and use some of the fantastic old ones. Yes. All right, now you can see when I stenciled, I had some little edge parts there. if you don't want those edge parts, get a baby wipe, like I have in my hand, and you can easily wipe those off. No problem. But I think I'm gonna just, some of those I think are possibly underneath, I don't know. I'm gonna take this big one off right here. That one was starting to dry pretty quickly. You know, Seth's work is all about grunginess, so grunginess galore. We love that. All right, so we have half of this stenciled out. Let's see what else we have. I thought I wanted to use this Tracy Bautista stencil. I do love this stencil so very much. And I want to see what parts to use here. I think I might do it. I do want this bit right here. So I'm going to and then that little part next to it is also a little square motif, which I like quite a bit. We got those. Let's put some more squares up here. Excellent. And then I want these dots and triangles right here. Those are random bits you could use almost anywhere, right? Okay. And we've almost used up all of our real estate, our skin real estate. We got a little bit more down here. And I could squeeze something else in right here, but I think I'm going to let that go. So we will let this dry, and then we will cut these apart, and I'll show you what you can do with skins. I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to pull out another piece that I had prepared last night and allowed to dry overnight. This one, I put the skin base down, and I kind of sectioned it off. And I thought I wanted to use a different color. I'm either going to use a gold gesso or a red ochre gesso. Maybe I'll use one of each. Let's take a look and see what we have. Okay, I've grabbed a Valerie Chodin stencil here. These leaves that I just love the looks of, and I really like this one right here. Now, I'm thinking about cutting it out and just using it straight away on here. So I think I will. I'm just gonna cut it here and then cut it down here. I don't know if I want the stem or not, so I'm gonna cut it as if I do and see if I'd want it. So I can put it, actually, you know, I think I'm gonna just put it just like that. So I do want to use the gold gesso on this one. This is that Daniel Smith acrylic gesso that I happen to love. I'm going to need to get a clean sponge. So let me run and get that real quick. Okay, so I've got another domed sponge here. I'm just going to take the black one off. You just pull it off. It's a little Velcro guy. And I'll put this person on, this little sponge person. And I've got the lid of the gold gesso now. I'm going to grab some gold, pounce it off over to the side, and pull this up on screen, and I'm going to stencil over this. I'm going to pull the gold out to the edge. I've got this sectioned off with the blue tape, and I think that this will look really pretty. Not sure what I'm going to do with these. I never know what I'm going to do. For me, this is like making paper or something else. I'm just, as I do, I'm making parts, right? And then when I go to work and I want to make an actual piece of art or work on a journal page, my parts are all ready for me. So there's that when I pull it up. Got a little gloppy up here at the end, but not that worried about it. It's okay. So I think then what I will do is where I cut that out, I'm going to put this down here and get another, you know what I'm going to do is cut this off because I don't want this edge to get in the gold. And I'm going to put this other section up here. Okay. You can use any kind of acrylic product on top of this acrylic base that we've made here. It's you could use, your paper artsies. You could use any different brand of paint. You don't have to use gesso. You can probably use acrylic inks as long as they just aren't too runny. So lots of options. All right, so there's that. All right, I'm going to turn it around, and then we'll do something red down here. I have this beauty here, or this one. I think I might use this one. All right, now I've got the gold on there. I just happened to notice I didn't have any more of these little sponges, so I can use this. This is a brush that you can just easily apply the stencil, apply paint over the stencil, or we can just use that gold. And I'm going to move this camera a little bit so you can see my paint here. Okay, so I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. The gold might lighten it up or give it a little bit of metallic, but just to show you this again, this is a Holbein color gesso. It's a red ochre, which is just a lovely color. All right, so again, I'm going to pounce up and down. And just to refresh, the pouncing is because the lines of these stencils I have chosen today are super thin. Now, I've got some little paint boogers in here. Okay, one, here's another one. This is because I don't clean my stencils, people. If you cleaned yours, you probably wouldn't have paint boogers. And, seriously, you could just add texture too, but I'm trying to demo this for you, and I want it to look really good. All right, so we'll get this up here. All right, and voila, there we go. All right, I'm going to move this one to the side to dry, and then I'm going to show you how to put down the acrylic that would make the basis for your paint skin. And let me just talk about acrylics for a minute. Acrylics are plastic, basically. So any of the acrylics that you have are probably going to work together. I am like 99.75% sure that they would. So I'm using a self-leveling clear gel because I like for it to go as flat as possible. You could be using a lot of different acrylics, and that would be fine too. This dries to a glossy film. When you work with glossy, it says right here, excellent clarity. The glossy is going to be totally transparent, so you'll completely see through it, and it'll blend in with whatever you're putting it over top of. Now, let's say you don't want it to look glossy. Well, you just paint over it with something matte afterwards. I always tend to use glossy at the front end because it's just gonna always give me the most the most transparent quality, and then I can assess whether I want it to look completely transparent, if I don't mind the glossy, or if I want it to look more matte. So that's all. All right, so the self-leveling is just as it says. It self-levels, right? So that is pretty cool. Golden recommends that you mix whatever medium you decide to use. And this is, I mean, you could make these with a gel medium. You'd have to smooth it out because gel is thicker. It's not pourable like this. You could, you know, all kinds of mediums you can use. Anything that is an acrylic medium. But Golden suggests you put some GAC 800, maybe like a little bit, 10% perhaps. And you can see me precisely measuring that. But what I do is just put a little in and then stir it up. The reason they say this is because sometimes you can get what's called crazing. And it's a little bit of a, kind of like a crackle, but it's in a place where you didn't necessarily want it. So this would prevent crazing. These GAC 800 does. So now you have it mixed up, and I pour it right on my plastic. The plastic I'm using was purchased in a large roll at a big hardware store, like at a Home Depot. It's a thick polyurethane plastic. I have a huge roll of it because I use it a lot. You are probably not going to want that. So what I would suggest is you just use a Ziploc bag. It's the perfect kind of plastic for this, especially if you get like the freezer bags that are a little bit thicker, and it will it'll work great. And they're rigid enough that you can carry your skin around while it dries. So all I do is pour it on there and try to spread it out. This top part is going to actually dry down flat because that's what self-leveling does. However, not all of the mediums dry down flat. Some of the others, it might dry down with that waviness. But the underneath part, this part under here, is going to be super flat because it's going to be right next to the plastic the whole time. You want to clean up these edges, you can do it with your baby wipe. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I tape it off like you saw in the other example. I spread it this time with a palette knife. You can spread it with one of these silicone spreaders. Really, anything you can use to make it go flat is fair game. So when you put your medium down, I like to let it dry at least overnight because that's going to give you the best result. Let's say you let it dry overnight and you don't think it's thick enough. Well, you can put a second coat on, let it dry again, and then put your paint on afterwards. In the comments, I've added a link to a tutorial that's over on the StencilGirl blog. It's a tutorial by Gwen LaFleur, who did kind of a deep dive into acrylic skins several years ago. She does a really interesting process, and I think if you like the idea of making these skins, you're going to want to check out that blog post, which is why I put the link. So let me grab the other skins, see if they're dry, and we can take a look and see what you might use skins for. Okay, so this is a presentation folder. It's like if you were doing, back in the day when many of us worked corporate jobs, you'd slide your presentation in there. I found a box of these super cheap, and I bought them, and I take my skins and I store them on this and stack them up so they don't stick to anything else, because this is the hardest part, is these little guys are sticky. So you can see I've started to peel this one up, and it's just sticky. In a perfect world, I would have put 2 layers on this, I think. It's thinner than I was anticipating. I'm going to try to cut over this here. But this is the hardest part of the skin world. Okay, there's exactly what I did not want to happen, but you can see it. The skin will stick to itself like that. So when you're pulling it up, you need to be super careful because it's going to stick to itself. There it is. Now, I don't want to cut. I mean, I could cut through the plastic right there, but why? I can use this plastic again, and this stuff isn't cheap, so I just don't want to do that. I'm going to try to get it up and use it, show you how these can be used. For me, the advantage of having a skin rather than stenciling directly onto my journal or my art is the flexibility. You can take the skin, you can move it around on your art, move it around on your journal, and see exactly where you want to put it. I mean, essentially, you're still working with collage, right? Because it's a little collage part. It's just a transparent collage part. And I do love the flexibility of that. I look like I'm all willy-nilly and wild and, you know, out on the edge with my art. But the truth of the matter is, I think pretty carefully before I do put the elements in. I'm tearing into the black of this, which is not what I want to do because I'm trying to be faster here. All right, slow down, Mary Beth. Slow your jets. And it's hard because it gets folded back, and that's not what you want. All right, one last bit down here, and then I'll have this guy cut out. All right, there it is. He's cut out. All right, I'm going to move the rest of this out of the way because I think I have a journal spread here that I thought this might be pretty in. All right, so I can trim this closer now that it's out of its background. And I thought that this was cool. These are not skins per se. These I made on Duralar over on this side. And I thought it would be cool to use a transparent part over on this side. So I might put that there, one option. Here are some collage parts that I might make a more ramped up looking collage part. You can see when you put it over something that has a print like that, actually I really like that. It's pretty cool. Let's move it this way maybe, because I kind of like this little bit over here, that little triangle. So you could store it with this, or you could put it right on this and then go ahead and use it. I mean, they're cool. Now this one, the paint is on the top side. So let's say you want to flip it and you want the glossy. This was the side that was next to the plastic. And look at how clean that looks, the glossy. It's super clean, and it's completely flat. I mean, I love that. Here's another little collage bit you might want to put it on. I think skins are the bomb. You know, I typically use them, as I've said, as a collage part, and I most frequently make them in black because I always like a little black accent on my pieces towards the end, and especially in my journal. So you can see how this would work. I mean, it's going to be cool, right? You can just go around and look at where you want to put it. And I do love the flexibility of that. I hope that you consider making skins of your own because it's just a lot of fun, and you end up with some very interesting results that will help move your work up to the next level. And it's what we always want, isn't it?